So, Ricardo, I'm really intrigued to open up the floor to you now to share with us your perspective of how we might conduct the Magic better uh, by improving our strategic outcomes, the performance of those, and to do that improvement with confidence and control. Well, we all understand our organisations have boards which provide us the direction for what we do. We have run parts to our business where our support functions are set up to enable our business to run. The product and operations areas do our value generation for us, and we may have a change portfolio that coordinates strategic change across all these domains. The positioning point here is that in many cases these roles are unclear. The governance is ad hoc and not orchestrated and supported. It just kind of happens of its own volition. There is no coordinated aggregation or quality assurance of the information and data that these domains have, except for their own tactical needs when they're typically quite good, but governance isn't particularly good. And the tools, processes and standards within each domain tactically for its needs might be great, but the facilities for governance and oversight are less well provisioned for. I don't think that's an unfair sweeping statement. So why don't we just think of some greater value add here? Let's go back to those objectives, those opportunities, threats, imperatives and goals. We said that our boards are listening for these things and collating these stimuli, and that it's up to them to turn those into objectives, targets and challenges, i.e. strategy, that we can task the business with. We can turn into actionables, I said. So these actionables, the objectives, targets and challenges, let's break them down into accountable points. Let's ensure that everyone knows who's accountable for which objective, target and challenge, and let's document that. That mapping is sometimes a little opaque within organisations, unless anyone is going to contradict us. Sweeping statement, but it's not too far off the mark. And we hope that those objectives, targets and challenges will drive the directors in these areas that look after the run and change aspects to our business. The problem is with our PMO scenarios as they are at the moment, we may have project management offices, PMOs, that provide resources to assist managing projects, reporting projects, checking projects, all that kind of good tactical stuff. That's very good, all fine. We might have a portfolio office which assesses and scrutinises our investments and protects key interests and just makes sure that our change is looked at. But what support is there to do that within product operations and support functions? How do we get the visibility of all the work and all the objectives that we have across business as usual, value generation and change? It's not quite so easy to see, and perhaps because it's not quite so broadly supported. So the proposition is that that we pull together our support resources, we orchestrate them underneath a support world that operates like a really strong business support function, like a service function, where it is responsible for catching the opportunities, threats, imperatives and goals, ensuring they're mapped to objectives, targets and challenges that then are passed into the business in terms of objectives for change, targets for business as usual and challenges for innovation, that provides resources to assist that to happen and to oversee it, and to support the review of benefits and value generation, and effectively then connects how we work across business as usual, change, and product delivery. And in itself, it has is empowered to do this, but is also accountable for what it produces. And itself is subject to success measures, which we present and report to show that this function is valuable and worth its skin. And that maps perfectly well onto the Technicolor picture we have of the big model, where we have functions that points of accountability within the product domain, within business as usual, within change, and across functions. And the model is where business support provides that wrapper to hold everything together. This fits it perfectly. Okay, so we've discussed business integrated governance and the core concepts. We've discussed the need perhaps to pull our support regimes together to enable this more effectively. But what exactly does it do? Well, we've already talked about there being great points of reference for what business support does, and the 22 standard services or whatever that we might know of that a PMO can provide. So we know what kind of is the core of what support needs to be. But we're really in big focused on governance, and what we've done with the big model is to create a framework for how governance operates. And we've created this thing we call a governance agenda, a generic governance agenda, which can be applied to any situation. For example, we've got here is a program scenario, and just looking at it, we have some inputs on the left here. So we organize ourselves to run an agenda that we know and can anticipate. So we can set up information sources to access, to pull the information we need to go through our agenda steps. We'll need to be dealing with escalations. We'll need to be dealing with re-steers from the portfolio or the business unit that's has the sponsorship within it for our program. And we're looking to go through the business of reviewing risks, understanding performance, setting actions, dealing with issues, making decisions. And the outputs from these sessions must be escalations and transfers. So what can't we deal with that we need to hand over? Actioning and tasking with respect to decisions. The setting up and tweaking of project mandates to re-steer them, and to manage communications to the wider business. This is a generic agenda that we have at the heart of our big model. We've generated a whole set of example of accountability nodes, from main board to portfolio to program to project to management team to finance to product. There's a whole bunch of these, so please fill your boots with those. But to us, business support has to help us run these agendas. But clearly, the agendas are based on information, and while we might be, for example, running an agenda, we'll need input of information. And the mindset with the big model is to move away from trying to share information point to point, from moving away from sending emails and spreadsheets and PowerPoints when information is needed, but instead sharing our information into a data framework, which means that our process time is shortened, the reliability of information is increased because it's in one place and we can run processes and check it. So if we have our information in one place, then we can harvest, after having harvested that and subjected it to quality checks and process, we can put our management information systems that look at this single source to hopefully see what the truth is. And that's something, a facility we can enable if we've harmonized how we approach governance and managing agendas. So if we've started to identify what these points of accountability are and started to identify what those agendas need to be and what the information needs for those agendas need to be, and start to think about how we're going to pull that information together from wherever it exists within our organizations, we need to start operating this governance framework, it needs a heartbeat, a drumbeat. It needs cadence. It needs to be orchestrated and regular and something that just happens and ticks away in the background. There is a fundamental logic that underpins our governance. For example, if we have a program, we need to make sure our projects are up to date and clear on their position before we run our program boards, and our projects need to have connected with their different work streams and teams on their progress before they report to their programs. So there's a natural logic for this kind of stuff. And also, if we run to a cadence, then we can schedule and connect the diaries of senior people together so that they're available, and we can all align and review where we are, forecast what's going to happen, and make decisions about what next, without having to scrabble around for scrappy bits of people's time to do that with. It also enables our local teams to get their act together so they can get their information ready for when we need to pull it together and consume it. And if we're doing it commonly and consistently, then we can justify investment in tooling to make that process happen more sweetly and provide a facility for all. And to be clear then, what we're looking for business support to do is to enable these governance agendas to happen. And I guess to run smoothly, we need to pick up and look at the program example we've just talked about, but understand that it fits in. It will fit in to our governance operation, that we'll have our projects updated before the program board sits. We'll have done the program review before our transformation portfolio gets together. We'll have reviewed our product portfolio and operations review before we do our corporate strategic portfolio review. This needs to be defined, orchestrated, and fitted together. And a business support function is what is going to enable that to happen.